Ladies and gentlemen, in 10 minutes, we'll resume today's session. At this time, please direct your attention to the stage for a special message from Lowell Lovegren.
How's everyone doing?
Here, you want this?
We got some ladies over here that's going to help collect some money for the BVL that pass a hat every year to honor all the veterans and thank Johnny for his service that he's done to help the veterans out here. Let's everybody get some money out, get the hat passed around so we can honor our veterans. Don't be shy. If everybody puts $10 in, I figure with Jason's account, we can get $8,000 out of here. Let's go. Also want to thank all the board of directors for the earlier award recipients. Thank you.
Yep, start them up. Yep. No, don't answer. Oh, there you go.
I got 100 too.
Thank you, Lowell. Whoa, whoa. Oh, did you win money in the casino? Dim the lights.
Ladies and gentlemen, we ask that you please slide inside as much as possible within your rows. We will have a full house here for our legislative session and board elections, but we have other delegates that need to get into the rows, so please scoot in and use up any available seats inside. Thank you.
Saw her face, now I'm a believer, not a trace of doubt in my mind. I'm in love, I'm a believer, I couldn't leave her if I tried. I thought love was more or less a given thing. It seems the more I gave, the less I got. What's the use in trying? All you get is pain. When I needed sunshine, I got rain. Then I saw her face. Now I'm a believer, not a trace of doubt in my mind. I'm in love, I'm a believer, I couldn't leave her if I tried. when I saw her face. Now I'm a believer, not a trace of doubt in my mind. I'm in love, I'm a believer. I couldn't leave her if I tried. It's a saw her face. Now I'm a believer, not a trace of doubt in my mind. Said I'm a believer, yeah, 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 yeah. Said I'm a believer, yeah, I'm a believer.
Oh, it's right here.
This is the nominating part. That ends there.
Okay. So here's this. Make sure this is correct.
Yeah, this is all correct. This is what I need here. This section here. 68 to... You need to get my stuff out of the way there? No, no.
On a dark desert highway, cool wind in my hair, warm smell of colitas.
Yep, I just need 68 to...
Up ahead in the distance, I saw a shimmering light. It grew heavy and my sight grew dim. I had to stop for the night. There she stood in the doorway. I heard the mission bell. And I was thinking to myself, this could be heaven and this could be hell. Then she lit up a candle and she showed me the way. There were voices down the corridor. I thought I heard them say, welcome to the Hotel California. Such a lovely place, such a lovely place, such a lovely place. Radio room at the Hotel California. Any time of year, you can find it here. Her mind is Tiffany twisted. She got the Mercedes Benz. She got a lot of pretty, pretty boys she calls friends. How they dance in the courtyard, sweet summer sweat. Some dance to remember, some dance to forget. So I called up the captain, please bring me my wine. He said, we haven't had that spirit here since 19...
And that wraps it up.
Thank you. It's been too long. Woo!
Kelly wants it. Kelly gets it. Big strike for 224.
I miss you. Thank you. Thank you.
It's a remarkable story. Not only is she back on tour, she's a champion again. A fantastic moment for Stephanie Johnson. Magnificent. 22nd career title, 10th major. And for the 6th time in her glorious career.
It's Fun Nation. Mom, Dad, I love you.
Has won on tour.
2 clean games, her last 2 clean games to win her title.
Twice in 2017, winners on tour. Needs 9 for the victory. Has 10 and has the title. 10th frame of a major. First shot for Liz Johnson. Yeah! Huge strike for Liz, the legend. Shannon O'Keefe. Wow. Incredible. One more time. You better believe it. We're going to another one. What a moment for Shannon O'Keefe.
Good afternoon. Welcome back. I hope you had a nice lunch and you're ready to roll for the business session of today's meeting. I'd also like to take an opportunity to also welcome a former USBC board member that's with us today, Rilla Yater. Rilla, thank you for your service. Thank you to Lowell who came up, and we passed the hat, and so I think the money's still being collected, but if you haven't made a donation to BVL, please make sure you see one of the volunteers. We appreciate your support of BVL. Before we get started, if you do not have a voting device and you are a registered delegate, please raise your hand and a staff will bring one to you. A member of our staff will bring one to you. I'd also like to take this time to recognize our 2 delegates that were appointed to sit with the staff during the legislative session and on hand to verify the voting for the board elections. We have with us Dan Martin of the Ohio State USBC BA and Billy Stewart, Thurston County USBC. As you might have seen from the agenda, we've made a slight change. We're going to conduct the board elections first and then the legislative session. So I'm going to pass it over to Carl Keelik, the chair of the nominating committee.
Thank you, President Wilkinson. Good afternoon and welcome to the board elections portion of the annual meeting. I am humbled and honored to have served as the chair of this year's nominating committee. I'd like to take a moment and introduce and thank the members of the nominating committee who have assisted me and guided me throughout this entire process. If they would please stand as I introduce them. Kathy DeSocio. Kelly Kulik, who's already headed on to Vegas. Mark Martin. Melissa McDaniel. Bill O'Neill. And Reno Page. Thank you so much for all your hard work. I want to share some details with you about the process for choosing the slate this year. The committee's responsibility is to review the applicants for the USBC board. The committee reviews all applicants and makes a decision on which candidates will move forward to the face-to-face interviews. We take many factors into account during our deliberations, such as, but not limited to, professional backgrounds, experience on local and state boards, geographic location, grassroots versus corporate, job experiences, coaching, youth involvement, and as I discussed the other day, needs of the board along with their leadership skills. After the face-to-face interviews are completed, we are required to slate at least 1 candidate for each open position, but no more than 2. This year, the committee has slated to 3 people you will meet shortly. We do not have any candidates running from the floor this year. This is a rigorous process, both for the candidates and the committee, and we feel like we've done our part by presenting 3 qualified candidates for the board. Voting will take place by utilizing the keypads you received. Yesterday, all the candidates participated in the Meet the Candidates workshop. Today, the nominating committee lost a page, I apologize. The nominating committee presents the following slate of candidates for your election onto your USBC Board of Directors. In alphabetical order, from York, Pennsylvania, Mr. Jay Dairyman. From Longtown, Missouri, Dennis Hacker. And from Tumwater, Washington, Karen Jost. Thank you, candidates, and good luck. Again, there are no candidates running from the floor this year. Before we proceed with the board elections, let's watch a short video that explains how to use your electronic voting devices.
Before we begin with today's voting, let's take a moment to understand how the voting process works. First, you should have been given a voting device with a secure sticker on the back that is numbered from 1 to 1400. You will need this device in order to cast your vote. If you have not received one of these devices, please see a staff member after this video is complete in order to receive one. Once everyone has a voting device, voting will begin. After you cast your vote, the green light on your device should display to let you know that your vote has gone through, at which time a signal is sent to the software. Your vote can be verified through the software by a member of the balloting committee, which is a group that is made up of 2 delegates. If you do not feel that your vote has been tallied, please inform a staff member and provide your voting device number. The staff member will inform the balloting committee, who will then check the software to ensure that the vote has been counted. If it is determined that your vote has been counted, this will be confirmed by a staff member. If your device has not registered a vote, then a member of the staff will reprogram the device and allow you to vote again. If the device still does not register a vote after reprogramming, then a new voting device will be issued and you will be asked to cast your vote again. Once all voting issues have been resolved, the results of the vote will be displayed and the voting process will continue. If you have any questions throughout the process, please feel free to ask a member of the staff for assistance.
Okay, it is now time for you to vote for your open positions on the board of directors. You will be voting on 3 open positions with all 3 candidates eligible to win a spot. Since there is an equal number of candidates to positions available, if a candidate does not receive a majority vote, that position is declared vacant. If all 3 candidates receive a majority of the vote, then each will serve a 3-year term beginning August 1st. Yes, sir.
Not on. Now it is. Mr. President, I would like to make a motion that a vote of acclamation be cast for the 3 candidates.
Okay, are you saying you want a vote of acclamation for election of the 3 candidates?
Of the 3 candidates.
Do we have a second?
I second. Yvette Davis.
Keith, can you identify yourself at the microphone, please?
Yep.
Keith Cornick, Chicagoland, USBC.
Thank you. Second
Yvette,
by?
Seconded by Yvette Davis, North Carolina State.
Thank you. So can we do this and then we'll do it? Can we do this and then? All right. We're going to take a voice vote.
Yep.
We're going to have to test the voting devices when we move into the next session. But so for all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? No. Thank you very much. Do you want to close out? So we're going to just say thank you. You're done. So just
the electronic? Is that right?
no. We're not doing it. Just say thank you. You're going to end it. You're done. Right? Say thank you. Yeah.
All right. By your actions, you have elected Jay Derryman, Karen Jost, and Dennis Hacker, who will start their terms on August 1st. Candidates, congratulations. And that concludes the election process. Back to you, Mr. President.
It's never been so easy, so you're not sure what to do. You follow the script and you go, okay, no, turn the page, turn the page, turn the page. Thank you very much. Thank you, Carl. Thank you to the nominating committee. And congratulations to our newly elected board members. We look forward to welcoming you to the boardroom. Now please welcome Legal and Legislative Committee Chair Mark Martin to begin the legislative segment of our annual meeting.
Thank you, Frank. Good afternoon, delegates. That's good. Not too many carbs for lunch, right? As we enter this legislative session, please refer to your bylaw amendment book you were given at registration. Kind of looks like this. So we'll be working out of that book for the next few minutes or hours. Not really. Now, Frank's going to chair this session, but I'll announce each of the proposed amendments. If the proposed amendment comes from a committee and through the USBC Board of Directors, it does not require a second, and once announced, the motion is on the floor for discussion. I will advise you of the recommendation of the USBC Board. The presenter of the amendment will be given the first opportunity to speak. Proposed amendments are primary amendments. An amendment to the primary amendment is defined as a secondary amendment per Robert's Rules of Order. If there is an amendment to one of the proposed amendments in the booklet, we ask that when possible, these be submitted in writing for clarification and correctness. Secondary amendments to the proposed or primary amendment are voted upon prior to the action on the proposed amendment, which appears in the booklet. The chair will state the amended version, the secondary amendment. Now, a delegate or registered attendee is allowed a 2-minute discussion and, when needed, a rebuttal of an additional 2 minutes once all first-time speakers have had their opportunity to speak. So please go to the microphone, and a USBC staff member will notify the chair, and the chair will recognize the location of the microphone. And when it is your turn, please state your name and association, Keith Kornick, remember that you're representing. Now, at that point, the 2 minutes will begin. Discussion will continue until the chair deems it is appropriate to call for a vote or call for the motion. Call to vote or a call for the motion had been adopted. You've received an electronic voting keypad that will be the equivalent of the written ballot. Please note that any amendment needing a ballot vote, President Wilkinson will announce the numbers on your voting keypad to use. You press 1 to approve an amendment and 2 to reject. You may press the button as many times as you want. However, only the last time you press it will count, and a green light will indicate that your vote has been registered. Now, for league and tournament rules, a simple majority is required to adopt. And for bylaw amendments, it requires a 2/3 vote to adopt. If you make a mistake, quickly press the number you want again, and the machines, again, will only record the last vote that you press. As you saw in the video, we do have a verification process, so anyone with a concern about their device can raise their hand for assistance and confirm their vote did indeed get counted. If you do need to leave the room, you'll need to surrender your device to a designated staff member. You'll be given a new one when you come back into the room. Now, I'd like to introduce the individuals that I may call on during the session to help answer any questions. Legal and Legislative Committee members, Jay Derriman, please stand up. Joe Diamond. Adam Mitchell. Steve O'Brien, and Reno Page. Also USBC staff members Mike Spridko and Lori Smedick. Finally, you can be seated. Finally, I'd like to introduce our legal counsel and parliamentarian, Scott Bechtel. Mr. Bechtel is a partner in the law firm of Michael Best and Friedrich. He has worked on many legal matters on behalf of USBC and is well-versed in our history and our bylaws. So now that we've outlined the procedures and the people involved, let's get started. But before we do get started, we're going to test your devices. So Mike Spritko, do you want to lead the test? Or do you want me just to? Ah, ha, ha, ha. I like it. I like it. Okay, so we're going to have this little challenge for you.
Wait, you do notice who's running the computer, right?
So, Frank, are you going to call for the vote, or do you want me to call for the vote?
Yeah, so you're going to tell us who your favorite regional manager is. George, David Prang, David Fields, Ben Brose, Jim Zebehazy, Robin Marshall.
How about a none of the above?
Ooh.
Or an all of the above.
Hey. All right, so please press a number 1, 2, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Please select one. And only one. You're committing to one. David, I'm watching you.
Make sure you've got a green light when you press that.
Now the Jeopardy music should come into play. Oh, yeah, Mike, what number?
0369.
0369. 369? 369?
Goose drank wine?
Didn't work?
What?
Yes.
Yes.
It registered?
Yeah. The 369 was recorded.
Notice how Jason Overstreet is not back here with us tallying the votes.
No, but he controls.
Love you, Jason. Love you, Jason.
But Frank, he controls the lights and the microphones. Remember that?
He does. Zip. Anybody else? It doesn't look like there are any other concerns. Does it look like all the votes are cast? Okay. Is it a majority vote? Do we have to drop the lowest vote getter and do it again?
Hey, Frank, when I saw Larson coming to the microphone, I thought he was wondering why his name wasn't on the list.
By your actions, you have named David Prang your favorite regional manager. However, George, you're pretty close. Dave, how many extra voting devices do you have in your hands? What were the totals vote cast? We're asking for a revote.
I didn't see anybody running to the microphone to challenge it.
You're not a voting delegate, sir, please. Just so that we know. Okay.
You can only challenge it, Lori, if you have a vote.
Are we confident to move forward? Okay. Mark, it's all yours.
Okay, if you turn to your book, page number 1. Rules Proposal LR1. Presented by Rick Weaver of Seminole, Florida. Recommended for rejection by the USBC Board of Directors. It's a change to Rule 109C, tardy players. Is Mr. Weaver in the audience? Is there any discussion on LR1? Seeing none, Frank?
Give me open. Okay. Voting is now open for. Oh, hey.
Again, it's 1 to adopt, 2 to reject.
All right. Voting is now open. David, I see some hands in front of you up over here. Some music. Looks like it, yep. Voting is now closed for rules proposal. Oh, wait a second, sorry. Where are we? I can't see behind the camera.
Come on, Frank.
Roger's gonna have to do one of these. What's the number, Mike? I got that. One of them did. So 623. So, make note of that number. We'll check it for the next one. 620. Yep. Okay. We'll watch that number for the next one. Thank you, Mike. Any other issues? That vote was cast. Do you want to? Get a thumbs up there? Okay, voting is now closed for Rules Proposal LR1. By your actions, you have rejected Rules Proposal LR1, 95% to 5%. And the vote count, please. 803 to 39. Okay, thank you.
Okay, now turn to page 2, Rules Proposal LR2 regarding league entering average. The recommendation of the USBC Board of Directors is for rejection. Jeff Gogan, Overland Park, Kansas, submitted the amendment. Is Jeff in the House? Is there any discussion from the floor? If you have discussion, please go to a microphone. Seeing none, Frank, it's all yours. Ready?
Just tell me where we're... Okay, voting is now open for Rules Proposal LR2. Please cast your votes. 1 to adopt, 2 to reject. If you have a problem, raise your hand. Scream and shout, shake it all about. See any hands? Okay. Looks like we're okay. Voting is now closed for Rules Proposal LR2. By your actions, you have rejected Rules Proposal LR2, 97% to 3%, which represents 802 votes, 26. Okay.
Please turn to page 7 in your booklet. We'll now go into the tournament rules section. Rules Proposal TR1. TR1 is presented by Karen Hagan of Flat Rock, Michigan, recommended for adoption by the USBC Board of Directors. Recognizing Karen Hagan here, the microphone to my left.
Thank you. I would like you, the delegates, to know that this is one of 2 proposals that I sent to USBC, but have agreed to withdraw the second proposal because we, as delegates, cannot vote on the subject presented in the second proposal. As it pertains to youth bowlers, it must be approved by the National Board. However, I, along with the rest of the Michigan State USBC Youth Board, believe that the second part of the proposal is the most important. Please let me explain. Did you know that anyone can run a USBC certified event for youth bowlers and not be a registered volunteer? It is happening right now in many areas of our country. The sticking point is that USBC requires all volunteers to become RVPs, but there are people out there running a business and are therefore not required to follow the same rules as you and I. We were blissfully unaware of this until a mother from our state sent a letter to USBC about a gentleman that contacted her 17-year-old daughter through Facebook, and the mom was very unhappy. The man knew where her daughter finished in our state Pepsi finals and that she did not have a junior gold membership. How much research went into him tracking her down, and how many others were contacted? To make matters worse, when we looked at his Facebook page, we found some very disturbing pictures. All this made me send a message to Chad Murphy, and his response was, it looked like he got spammed, it happens, and there's nothing that could be done because he's not a USBC member, and therefore Chad's hands were tied. When this gentleman walked into my bowling center on a Saturday night in September on his tour to drum up bowlers for his junior gold tour, I spoke with him personally. When I explained the proposals that I had sent in, he told me he had no problem becoming a USBC member because, after all, it only costs $4. And he would become RVP'd. When I mentioned the pictures, he claimed to know nothing about them, and when shown the pictures, expressed shock. I suggested to him that since he had started a new junior gold tour and Facebook page, that he should shut down the old one, and he assured me that he would. That was September. As of lunchtime, it's still out there, and the pictures are still up there. And he is not a USBC member, and he is not RVP'd. Now, I'm not saying that he has done anything wrong other than not following through when he gave me his word. But I feel as an entity whose only function is to supply youth bowlers to our organization's largest youth event, then he and others that are doing the same events should be subject to the same rules as you and I are. Maybe we as the Michigan State USBC Youth Board are overreacting to the situation, but this isn't the coach that spends 2 hours in the bowling center with your kid and then goes home. This is a gentleman that holds events in many states that requires an overnight stay, and in instances, he books hotel rooms. Shouldn't he be held to the same standards as us volunteers? We hold our meetings in Lansing, just down the street from Dr. Larry Nassar's offices. And we have seen all too clearly what could happen when someone in a position of authority has no one to oversee their actions. We just want to see all adults that are working with our kids to have someone overseeing their actions.
Thank you. Karen, I'm sorry, please wrap it up. You're over your time.
Yes, I have been assured that the National Board believes in this proposal and will approve the RVP requirement for all tournament directors that work with the youth, but we as delegates must first approve the proposal in front of us. I hope that you all share in this belief, and it's our responsibility to make sure that our kids are safe and vote yes for the proposal. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen.
Thank you, Karen. Your sentiments have certainly been shared with the Youth Committee, so thank you.
Karen, are there any other discussion points? Anybody else want to make any discussion? Remember, what we're voting on today is requiring all tournament managers to be USBC members. Seeing none, Frank? Again, the recommendation of the USBC Board is for adoption.
Okay, voting is now open for Rules Proposal TR1. Press 1 to adopt, 2 to reject. Mike, we okay back there? David? Okay, voting is now closed for Rules Proposal TR1. Close to 100%. By your actions, you have approved Rules Proposal TR1, 830 to 12. 99% to 1%. That adds to 100, right, Mark?
Okay, now turn to page 8, please. Rules Proposal TR2. This is presented by the USBC Legal and Legislative Committee. Rule 319A, recommended for adoption by the USBC Board. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, Frank?
Voting is now open for Rules Proposal TR2. Press 1 to adopt, 2 to reject. Looks like we're clear. All right, voting is now closed for Rules Proposal TR2. By your actions, you have adopted Rules Proposal TR2, 93% to 7%. And the vote count, 772 to 55.
If you turn to page 11, we now turn into bylaws. Bylaws, might I remind you, for adoption requires a 2/3 affirmative vote.
TR3.
Oh, what did I do here? Okay, let's go to page 10, TR3.
Rewind.
Thank you. I thought my name was Jason Overstreet for a second.
Chad, I think you owed Jason some dinner. On behalf of us. All of us.
Okay, TR3 on page 10. Is presented by the Legal and Legislative Committee and recommended for adoption. It's a change to Rule 325. Frank?
You ready? There's nobody at the microphone. We're ready to go. Voting is now open for Rules Proposal TR3. Press 1 to adopt, 2 to reject. Steve, were you okay? Okay. Gary? Voting is now closed for Rules Proposal TR3. Okay. By your actions, you have adopted Rules Proposal TR3. 708 to, sorry, 84%, 16%. That's quick. 708 to 133. Hey, I'm not the one that voted that you weren't the favorite. Just don't start messing with me. It's not my fault, George. Okay.
Now can we go to bylaws? All right. Page 11, B1. B1 is a proposal by the USBC Succession Planning Task Force recommended for adoption by the USBC Board of Directors in regards to bylaws of the Board of Directors. I'd like to recognize Montana Meyer of the St. Louis USBC, the center microphone. Montana.
I proposed an amendment. We discussed this at our local association level. And I believe that, and our association agreed that 1 2-year term does not seem long enough to be able to achieve greatness. So we proposed to make that amendment to 2-year terms, with the 10-year still being in place, not exceeding 10 years.
Okay, thank you, Montana. So there's a amendment to the amendment to, it may serve 2 3-year terms. Is there a support?
That's 2 2-year terms.
2 2-year terms.
With the 10-year maximum.
With a 10-year max.
Sean Flannery, Missouri State Association. I second that motion.
Okay, so the motion has been properly seconded. Is there any other discussion from the floor about the amendment to the amendment, not the main amendment, but just the amendment, the secondary amendment? Seeing none, Frank, we will now vote on the amendment to the amendment.
Okay. Open? Okay, voting is now open. You are voting on the amendment to the proposal, BR1. This is majority vote, 1 to adopt, 2 to reject. Are you cutting me off at 2 minutes too, Scott? Yeah. You have a number, Dave? David, good? Dave? Yes? Yes. Okay. Voting is now closed for the amendment to the bylaws proposal B1. By your actions, you have adopted the amendment to bylaws proposal B1. 80% to 20%, 671 to 163.
Okay, so now the B1 has been amended to 2 2-year terms. The floor is now open for any discussion on the amended amendment proposal.
Any discussion?
Seeing no discussion, again, just to remind you, the recommendation of the USBC board is for adoption. Frank?
Voting is now open. for B1 as amended. 1 to adopt, 2 to reject. In front here. For amended bylaws proposal B1. By your actions, you have adopted the amended B1, 90% to 10%, 758 to 82.
Now please turn to page 13. Bylaw proposal B2 was presented by Douglas Sass, Walkersville, Maryland, recommended for rejection by the USBC board. Microphone to my right, please.
Hi, my name is Pauline Terrebonne from the Mid-Maryland USBC, and I'm reading this on behalf of our board member, Doug Sass. Delegates and board members, I'm sorry I could not attend this week's activities and personally speak to all of you, that I am unable to speak to the importance of this proposal you are all voting on today. Technology has advanced in leaps and bounds. USBC uses this technology to determine the direction of bowling ball specifications, lane patterns, oil absorption, and even a robot geared to try and shoot 900. Technology has improved how people can connect with one another in ways that 25 years ago were unheard of. But with all that said, technology can be used to make sure that each of the eligible delegates have the opportunity to exercise their earned power to be a voice for their members. I have read all of the reasons that USBC has given as to why you feel this proposal should not be passed. And before this comes to a vote, I think it is important to share my thoughts on this reasoning. The technology has allowed us to create chat rooms, groups to discuss important matters, and limit who is able to participate. For those at the convention, it is easy to discuss such matters in person. For the rest of it is always easy to read and view the conversations as pertain to one proposal or another. This will give you the informed delegates to make a good decision. The use of the website to conduct voting is not new and has been used for public companies for quite some time. One such website is used by the Canadian Football League Players Association. In researching such websites, the costs range based on 8,000 eligible votes.
5 seconds.
Okay. So 19% of the delegates voted last year. That doesn't represent our membership base. Let us embrace technology and its benefits and give all of our members the opportunity to be heard.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Okay. Okay. Voting is now open for Bylaws Proposal B2. Press 1 to adopt, 2 to reject. Okay. Mark? Voting is now closed for Bylaws Proposal B2. Sorry. That's Jason getting back at me. Okay, by your actions you have rejected Bylaws Proposal B2, 87% to 13%. 717 to 111.
Please turn to page 17 in your booklet. Bylaw Proposal B3. B3 is presented by the USBC Legal and Legislative Committee and is recommended for adoption by the USBC Board. Allows for states to have up to 2 at-large directors.
Good. Hearing no discussion, ballots are now open. Bylaws Proposal B3. Press 1 to adopt, 2 to reject. Okay. Voting is now closed. Voting is now closed. Okay. By your actions, you have adopted Bylaws Proposal B3, 82% to 18%. 657 to 147. Mark?
Okay, delegates, thank you for your attention to these matters. This now closes our legislative section. And Frank, it's all yours.
Thank you, Mark. We have a few items here to take care of before a full adjournment and before we head into a town hall. But first, Vanna, lovely Kathy DeSocio, has this beautiful painting that many of us saw. Sam Glenn painted during our session this week. And we're going to raffle this off to one lucky association. And you're going to carry this home on the plane. I'd love to see you walk on that plane. Somebody will have to, I'm kidding. We will get it to you. But one lucky association that is represented here today will win this to take back to their association. You could use it as an auction item, a raffle, maybe for BVL. I believe that's very fitting. Or your charity of your choice. So Madam Vice President, would you make someone happy, a group happy?
What if I pull my own association?
Go ahead, go for it. No.
No.
She had asked, what if I pull my own association? But it's not. The Onslow County USBC. Come on up and take a picture. Congratulations. Where are we from? North Carolina. I should have known by the voice. Hey. Okay, congratulations. We will certainly get that to you. At this time, I'd like to ask if we have any old business to present to this delegation. Hey, Lowell, would you like to come up here? Old business, new business. We'll make it old business. We have a drum roll. I didn't cue you up before.
Okay, with all your support for the BVL during this convention, with the Pass the Hat, you raised $4,058.30. Congratulations, and thank you to the veterans.
Thank you, Lowell. Will the bag handlers please stand? And those that counted all of that money. Thank you very much for your help. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Great job, team. If there's no other new business, I'd like to ask if we have any, if there's no other old business, any new business that you'd like to share with the delegation at this time. Is Libby, oh, I thought Libby was getting to the microphone. At this time, I turn your attention to the screens. Let's take a look ahead to next year's USBC convention. Our theme next year is Forging the Future Together. All right, so mark your calendars.
Ladies and gentlemen.
Oh, sorry. I was just going to say, hey, mark your calendars. We're going to have a great time in Las Vegas next year. You ready to come back? All right. Sorry, Jason. Try it again.
We can probably just go, can't we?
Testing. Hello.
Yeah.
That was actually a recording of me before, believe it or not. But now that I'm live, let's welcome Chad Murphy back to the podium for a special presentation.
As you know, Frank Wilkinson is our outgoing president, and so we'd like to spend just a few minutes talking about him.
Rejected.
We can bring the slides up.
2.
I'm sure we could open up the voting, as they say, and I'm sure we'll do okay. Like many of you, Frank Wilkinson has bowling in his blood. He also has a service as part of his soul. As you may know, Frank's father was a proprietor in Staten Island, New York, but Frankie didn't just want to be the owner's son. He wanted to volunteer for the sport. Yeah, we're good. At age 11, he began volunteering with his local YABA association. When he was 18, he was elected president of the New York State USBC Youth Leaders Chapter. In 2008, Frank's father passed away, and suddenly in his early 20s, he had to assume the awesome responsibility of running the family business. He not only took on that challenge, but he continued his leadership in the sport, joining the USBC National Board as a youth representative in 2010. He's been involved in about every level of what's been going on for a large number of years. It was under his leadership that we have seen the amazing growth of junior gold, increased exposure for collegiate bowling, and collaboration with BPA to reduce youth bowling membership down from $17 to $4. In 2015, Frank was elected USBC president at the age of 28. And through his leadership, he has brought this delegation closer together, focused the organization on investing for the future, and unquestionably moved USBC forward in countless ways. We've spent a lot of time and energy together. When I got to the campus 8 years ago, a friend of mine that was working there said, hey, you need to go out and meet Frankie Wilkinson. And the second person that they sent me to was Frankie McDaniel. And they said, you got to go meet these folks. They do youth the right way. And you remember I came in on the youth side. And it was about a year later, I got invited to the USBC Youth Committee meeting. And Frankie and I have been talking on the phone, every 6 or 7 weeks. Pretty much every day or every other day since. We shared a passion for youth bowling, worked hard on it, spent time and energy batting back and forth what was good and bad about what was possible, sharing a very optimistic view about it. And it's just really been fun to be a part of. let's share a few moments looking back at Frank's time in bowling.
Make sure you come and join us. Oh, see, that's not what I wanted to say. Pack your bags. We're heading to beautiful Nashville, to Nashville, to the beautiful Gaylord Opryland. Pack your bags. We're headed to Nashville, to the beautiful Gaylord. Why is it so hard? I can't spit it out. Let's see if I can spit it out. The magnificent show will take place all under one roof.
Good morning. Do you like me? Today's vision sets the tone for tomorrow's future. The decisions that we have made and the accomplishments we have celebrated are all a reflection on what is yet to come, all working towards the vision of a stronger, unified, national governing body that will lead our industry.
Serving on our board of directors has certainly been a lifetime opportunity to give back to the sport and the organization that has given so much back to me. We serve because we can and we care, and we have an affinity to what USBC does, and I certainly do believe in what USBC does for bowling. I think you have enough.
Frankie, come on. Certainly tough to describe, how many years. Wise, so mature beyond his years. He always just had this one consistent thing that he would always share. And I don't know how many times he said it to me, but it's a big number. He said, hey, we got a job to do. We got a job to do. And if we're headed in the right direction, the support will be there. And so let's just go do our jobs. And he's just been consistent with that since we walked into this. And it's just been an amazing run. These boards were something that, I didn't spend much time thinking about or even cared about when I was in my prior life. But it's a real collaborative effort. And Frankie's done such a wonderful job of kind of bringing everybody together. I think that's his real deep down skill, while at the same time making sure that we all remember that we have a job to do. So brother, I love you. I appreciate everything you've done for me personally, but for this organization, and even more importantly for the sport of bowling. So thank you for your service.
Thanks, Chad. Ooh, I had a lot of choice words in that green screen video that I'm glad Steve cut out of that. And of course, I knew someday it would come to haunt me. But it's all in fun. Thank you. As I said earlier, it's been a pleasure to serve, and thank you for allowing me to serve. We do this because we can and we care. And Chad says it's in our blood and our DNA, and I've learned from the very best. So thank you very much. I missed an opportunity to thank some others earlier today, but my travel buddy, some of you follow me on Facebook, I call him my grandpa, He's far from grandpa, but Jim, who's now our association president, celebrated his 80th and 81st birthday with us this week. No, it's not his birthday. A little too early. But Jim, thank you for all that you do, and thank you for coming along for the ride. It's greatly appreciated. I have the pleasure, our board met earlier this month, of course, pending the election process and this meeting, but we took the opportunity to elect our next leadership. And it's with my pleasure to introduce to you the future leadership of this organization. I know that they will serve this group very well, working very hard together in a transition process, and I'm excited for what's next. So first, your incoming president, Carl Keelik of El Paso, Texas. And serving as his vice president, Karen Jost, with the great state of Washington. Congratulations to you both. Our board has said a lot to you, and we look forward to having you serve this great organization. Carl, is an opportunity for you to say a couple words.
First of all, I'm extremely honored for the opportunity and appreciate the support and trust that the fellow board members have shown by selecting me to serve as your next president. President Wilkinson and Vice President DeSocio, thank you for your incredible leadership over these last 3 years. I have some very big shoes to fill. I very much look forward to working with Karen, the board, and the incredible USBC staff as we continue USBC's focus on being an effective national governing body and providing quality services to our membership. I'd be remiss if I didn't specifically recognize the 3 individuals whose service ends this summer. You all have meant a lot to me. Nancy, you're a tenacious and an inspirational leader, which I've learned a great deal from. Dan, your voice, your insight, and your ability to keep us in check will certainly be missed. Steve, your selflessness and humble approach make you a great friend, and you've been a huge asset. For those that don't know, Steve made the decision not to run for re-election this year in order to ensure that this board had a new face going forward. It is an incredible testament to your humility and your heart. Nancy, Dan, and Steve, thank you so much. Together, we are USBC, and you, our volunteers, are our most valuable asset. Progress begins within each of us, and our future is bright. I'm looking forward to the journey. Thank you so much.
Hey, Carl, catch. Thank you very much, Carl and Karen. Congratulations. Thank you. I look forward to serving 1 more year on this board with you. With that, the 2018 USBC Annual Meeting is officially adjourned. We sure hope to see you for the town hall meeting after a 15-minute break. As we've done in previous years, we have asked questions to be submitted in advance if possible. Please hand your question card to any USBC staff member, and we'll discuss the topic during the town hall. If you need another, please reach out to one of our staff members. We'll see you back here in this room in 15 minutes.
Darling, you got to let me know. Should I stay or should I go? If you say that you are mine, I'll be here till the end of time. So you got to let me know. Should I stay or should I go? It's always tease, tease, tease. You're happy when I'm on my knees. One day is fine and next is black. So if you want me off your back, well, come on on and let me know. Should I stay or should I go? Should I stay or should I go now? Should I stay or should I go now? If I go there will be trouble, and if I stay it will be double. So come on and let me know. These sudden decisions bugging me. If you don't want me, set me free. Exactly whom I'm supposed to be. Don't you know which clothes even fit me? Come on and let me know. Should I cool it or should I blow? Split. Should I stay or should I go now? Should I stay or should I go now? If I go there will be trouble, and if I stay it will be double. So you gotta let me know. Should I cool it or should I blow? Should I stay or should I go now? If I go there will be trouble, and if I stay
not a souvenir.
she's gone, and I have to say, meet you all the way. Meet you far away. Rosanna, yeah. Meet you all the way. Meet you all the way.
Mike Spritko to the stage, please. Mike Spritko.
She's a good girl, loves her mama, loves Jesus, and America too. She's a good girl, crazy about Elvis, loves horses, and her boyfriend too. And it's a long day, living in Reseda. There's a freeway running through the yard, and I'm a bad boy, 'cause I don't even miss her. I'm a bad boy for breaking her heart. Now I'm free, free falling. Yeah, I'm free, free falling. All the vampires walking through the valley move west down Ventura Boulevard, and all the bad boys are standing in the shadows, and the good girls
What's it like to be a
on the broken
be my what's it like to make mid cry? Grown mid cry.
We're going to start the town hall in just a few minutes if everybody'd like to get settled. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, quick reminder, please turn in your voting devices. Please return your voting devices. Thank you.
Mine's down there. Yes, where do you want us? Out into nothing, gonna leave this world for a while.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are still missing 14 devices. Please turn them in to a staff member.
All right. Welcome to the town hall portion of the 2018 convention. For those of you that are still here, thanks for hanging around. We're going to start with a little softball, and then as we advertised, we'll hop into the USOC piece, and then we'll come out of that back to the cards, and then if anybody else has any questions, we'll move forward from there. So we'll try to rapid fire on some of these. Chris Cole said, last year I asked Chad Murphy to please consider raising the lane inspection fee from $5 to $10 a lane. That extra $5 should be paid by the USBC and or shared by USBC and local association. To date, I have received no update or response from anyone. Please explain where this stands. Thanks for the question, Chris. There'll be more information on that comes out in the fall. We didn't want to have any confusion within the season, and so there'll be a press release that comes out on that at the end of the summer, headed into next year's inspections. I'm going to, real quick, rolling into the USOC piece, it's fairly complicated, but we want to do everything we can to answer any questions that you might have. And Jason has led this project for us really since day one. Our legal counsel, Scott Bechtel's here. It was a pretty amazing process, and I would even just share with you personally to have, Rick Adams, the deputy at USOC, and Gary Johansson, their legal counsel in our offices, were, it was a really good, fun, productive day. Even when they asked if they could see and go through the equipment specs area, and they asked a ton of questions about what we were doing about technology, which obviously we didn't have high-level discussions about any of the changes, but there's a lot of really positive things that are coming out and from all of these talks with USOC. So I'll let Jason kind of roll you through the timeline and see what questions you might have.
All right, thanks, Chad. And just give a high-level kind of timeline of this, what happened. And essentially we had a member who had some concerns about some of the procedures involved in due process for suspending members that raised that to USOC for review. And that sent us into a process with USOC where they were taking a look at the consistency of bowling's process for dealing with grievances and hearings and the way that we process complaints that come in specifically from rules and tournaments generally as it affects membership. And comparing that to what our standard practices for other national governing bodies under USOC and what the guidelines are and requirements under the Ted Stevens Act. We certainly had some good discussions, some disagreements. At the end of the day, USOC decided that our bylaws needed some adjustments, put us on a temporary probation status while we were able to go through that, work through how to adjust our bylaw languages to make sure that we were compliant. The short summary of what changed and the reason why is that previously USBC and the predecessor organizations before it had held that general membership suspensions didn't require an in-person hearing for everyone by just automatically. It would be something that would be requested, and then if it was appropriate, legal and legislative would grant an in-person hearing. Throughout USBC's history, it had really been a non-issue. There was only one example of anybody that had said they wanted an in-person hearing related to a grievance. And this had always been a standard practice for the athlete side. There was, before the merger, of course, USA Bowling had a slightly different process, and there are significant other procedures and things that are involved with athletes that are a part of Team USA, as those of you that have ever been in our bylaws understand. But at the end of the day, we've made adjustments to our bylaws to allow for an in-person hearing for anybody that is facing a membership suspension if that is something that they feel is required. And so that's something that then we'll do moving forward. We think that a lot of positive outcomes out of it, good understanding from USOC, better about how their process works and the way that they're looking at things in terms of their governing bodies. And I think that in collaboration with the Legal and Legislative Committee and our staff, that we've come up with a really excellent process to be able to provide that in situations that it's needed. And certainly I know that that's a very short summary of what's been kind of a long process, but we want to be open with any questions, if there are any questions or concerns or comments related to it, that we can help shed additional information. We hope that generally speaking the bylaws and what we release in the news release give a clear enough understanding.
We would just open up the microphones on that topic and see if anyone has any question. Okay. Oh, maybe? No?
All right. Well, in that case, we will proceed on to some of the question cards. Thank you for everybody. A lot of good questions on a variety of topics. We'll try to consolidate some of the ones that were similar, but also And make sure if we don't answer anything specifically for any reason, it's in a consolidated topic, it's not intentional. Please, we'll give you everyone the opportunity to head to the microphone for as much time as you're interested in continuing the conversation today. Here's one that came in just asking about feedback and the fact that don't necessarily have feedback cards anymore outside of education seminars anymore. We are very much interested in feedback from you. That feedback will be coming via an online, an email survey where we'll want to hear everything that you have to say about the things that you liked and things that we can improve on from this convention. So please do look for that. It will be coming. Another question about USA Bowling, our youth program, and just asking about some way, if there are other ways to promote USA Bowling even more at this convention and annual meeting. So I don't know, Chad, if that may be something that you have any thoughts on. I know that's a program that you're really passionate about.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, that program is evolving. It's growing, getting a little bigger. It's just about getting more of the word out, and I think the youth department folks are there for that. One of the great things about, or at least one of the things that I'm very proud of, is that stepping out of the youth department and moving into USBC, Gary and Roger and now Jimmy and the staff, they're just doing a wonderful job of operating the business in a quality way. That tournament group is getting bigger. They just recently hired a new person to work more closely with proprietors and centers on a one-on-one basis to really kind of move that mainstream sports model forward. But I would just say generically, reach out to them. They're there for you. If you have anybody that's interested, just give Gary or Roger a call and they'll provide any of the resource materials that are available. But really, USA Bowling's one piece of it. I would say that's true across the entire platform. I talked about the Association Resource Center before earlier in the day, but you'll remember we launched a youth resource center several years ago, and it's still a very very, how am I doing? There's still lots of folks going to the site, checking out the information, and it's there. So I would even encourage you to go there, go to the USA Bowling tabs, and then call with additional questions or email. Sorry about that.
We have a card here asking just about voting devices and if there could be an abstain button added to the device. Not something that is available with our current system, but of course by not pushing the button, that is an abstain, and we know how many what the voting strength is, and by doing the test, know how many are in the room, and certainly have the validation procedures in place. Hopefully everybody feels pretty comfortable with the way that the voting devices have simplified and improved things for us. A question that we get regularly about the youth processing, and asking about the roadmap for youth processing and integration to WinLabs, and that is certainly something that we hope, in terms of data being pushed down from youth processing to WinLabs, that is improves with WinLabs 12. I certainly know that it's still never perfect, but we're quite aware that our youth processing system online is getting towards the end of where its life cycle is going to need to be looked at, and it is certainly on our roadmap, and we hear you and appreciate that. Several questions related to the new equipment specifications. I'll try and put some of them, the ones that are common that I can answer easily, relate to the quote dry towel rule and just what classifies as a dry towel. One question, if a dry towel means only a towel, or does that include a pad? Another question about the new dry towel rule, and how to handle things if there's something that ends up getting stuck on the ball from a return wheel, etc. The dry towel rule could also be perhaps better described as a no liquid cleaner during competition. So any dry towel, whether it's a tie or a shirt or a pad, it's the liquid cleaner is the key point. And if a substance is on the ball that shouldn't be, and some type of additional cleaner is required in order to restore the ball back with the permission of the tournament manager or league official, that can take place, and that is also specifically clarified within the FAQs that are available on bowl.com, if my language wasn't necessarily precise enough.
Yeah, I think that just one very specific thing, the chamois are very popular, and you can certainly still use them, just no liquids.
several questions just related to the balance hole as well, and in terms of ball plugs, whether or not a ball after 2020 could be drilled with an extra hole and replugged. I mean, that's certainly not something that any of us are in a position to know when balance holes were drilled or plugged, but as it relates to the rule, it's really is generally immaterial. Some questions about whether or not policing and enforcement of plugs, and I think that that would generally be done in a similar fashion as what takes place today. And Chad, I know you've received that one and may want to add a little bit of color too.
Yeah, we got the question in the young delegates group too. You know, I always say it's one of the great things about our association. You know, members governing members. USBC is really a mediator in most cases, especially when it comes through rules. So if you see something out of order, ask the person or ask a league official, tournament official, however that might go. But then if there's a larger problem, then you can send a protest or something like that into rules. The rule is so simple because it's going to be obvious if somebody's using a weight hole or not. There will certainly be, you know, maybe some folks that are outliers that, you know, shallow up the plug. I think one of the questions was, should it be a solid plug or a clear plug? You know, we don't see that as a real issue, if you will. There's also conversation about whether you could slug the hole, which that leaves a void at the bottom, which is actually illegal, but that could be fixed too. And so in the end, you have the evidence right in front of you, and so the enforcement would be at the local level in the membership's hands in that case. But we don't see that as any, you know, really larger of an issue. We get some cases into rules semi-regularly in this area already. We had one last year where somebody was putting metal into the plug to make the ball heavier. It's just something that happens, and so when you see it, certainly raise your hand, and if you can't resolve it locally, then certainly national will get involved.
We have a variety of questions, kind of a slightly different flavor, but on a similar topic of compliance and the issues at the local level. What do I do if I have a local association manager who will never leave? What do I do if there's a concern about somebody who's not following the rules? I would say that all of these issues that come up for concern, that we want to be available to be a resource at the national level for you, whether that's talking to your regional manager, talking to our rules staff. If you have concerns about USBC policy or rules that aren't being followed and need to be enforced, we need to be made aware of it at the national level before we can either provide you guidance on how best to proceed at the state or local level, or whether or not to intervene. And I think that the other thing that we frequently get is a question is that somebody has to actually file a grievance or a complaint to the rules department that there's a problem before we can take any action about it. And so sometimes I know we hear rumors about different things that are going on in our area, and certainly want to follow up on it. We encourage you to follow up on it when there are things of concern, and certainly if it's again a rules problem or any kind of financial malfeasance. But utilize our staff and our team. That's what they're there for. We're here. We want to hear from you and be there and help guide you through some of that. Go ahead, Chad.
Go ahead and finish. I'm sorry.
I just saw a gentleman with the microphone. Yeah. We're going to generally run through the cards first and then get to. So I didn't want you to. And I've got a bunch of them, but we will be happy to. We will take all the questions from the microphones once we get through the cards.
If I could just topper onto that one, you know, Karen's piece of legislation today with the member requirement on the tournament, that to me is just good process. You know, we could that have been done years ago versus today? Yeah, but nobody had brought it forward, and so it'll certainly make it easier for us now, you know, to regulate that space. But and Jason hit on it kind of a little bit. That rules department is such a good resource for the membership. It's such a good resource for us as staff members. It's such a good resource for tournament directors, and I think it's. You know, okay, well, I have this issue, but a lot of people think that rules department might be the police, where in most cases they're mediators. Someone says something, and then there's a small investigation, and then hopefully we find a remedy in between. But just remember that it's still an organization that's governed by its members, but the rules department's there to settle disputes when there are things that are needed. And even in this, again, I'm going to go back to Karen's thing for just a second, because again, I think it's a good process. And then if we can't settle the dispute, there's the legislative process. And I think it worked to a T today. I was really happy to see that.
This question says, as I look through the halls, I see a lot of folks that are getting older. My question is, what is the national USBC doing to grab the attention of younger bowlers and get them to join in? That certainly was a topic that I know came up for Chad in his executive director's report with the Young Delegates program, and it's been exciting that I think that we have seen some good, measurable, clear progress on that in terms of our representation here at convention and in local involvement across the country over the last few years.
Yeah, and the message there, I just couldn't be any more excited about the way that's moving along. When you have young people come in and they're sitting with a board, of a certain size, it has to be intimidating. It has to be tough, and there has to be a level of understanding. But the more inclusive we are to include everyone in the process locally and at the state level, one of the things that stands out to me the most, if you look at the last two presidents of this national organization, they were both less than 30 years old. And then you add in, now Carl, and I'm not going to give his age away, but, he was standing in the under 45 section today. And so, and it isn't younger or older, it's both. I think there has to be a collaborative nature that goes with it. And to be very specific, I don't think this is an issue that doesn't take place in a lot of association work. Those voices still need to be heard too. And so a best case scenario would certainly be a room filled of diversity. And then the conversations come out and everybody's working together. And so we hope that you guys believe and see that as the opportunity as well.
A question just about whether or not there are any talks going on with the NCAA about being able to utilize smart money for NCAA bowlers at a greater degree.
Yeah, that one's a tough one. Gary and I, have spent a lot of time in and out of that. We spent some time in the Michigan State High School Athletic Association offices a few years ago. Illinois, we flew to New York. NCAA is a piece of it. That's just a tough nut to crack. When you really think about sports and amateurism, the NCAA and their rules are their rules. But even I would take this as a larger level to USOC. Some of the complication that went in with these bylaws and the new hearings and those types of pieces is because, quite honestly, none of the other sports deal in money. In the very specific question, the NCAA, none of the other sports for the most part are dealing in scholarships. And that's why we maintain a separation with our national amateur championships and those types of things, because we still have to be representative of that larger athletic relationship, both with NCAA, NAIA, NJCAA, all the state high school athletic associations, and then of course USOC. When we inevitably, possibly in the future end up in the Olympics, that's when those pieces will certainly be important to everybody. But I don't see a situation currently where there's movement for NCAA to change their rules. We'll have to evolve around them, just like we did with USOC. But again, to be very specific about that, think of all the athletic departments that are supporting bowling. What is it, 63 with NCAA? 72 NCAA athletic departments that are paying for bowling at those schools. That's an enormous opportunity for our sport. In NAIA, it's an emerging collegiate sport. Same thing. Those athletic departments are going to fund these athletes to compete. NAIA is going to be both boys and girls, where NCAA is just the women's side. And so it's a good thing that these things are going on. But we will always have onward collaboration with those organizations and work towards the best interest of everybody.
Question about just the bowling season, why membership is effective through the end of July, as opposed then to having the previous situation where memberships would be bought in the beginning part of the season and then extend out. What the season is.
Yeah, that one came up in I think when I was walking through lunch the other day. Put it back through as a piece of legislation. Anybody that's interested in being willing to stand up and have a conversation is due the process. And if that's where you think it should go, let's get another piece of legislation together. Let's get it back into this body, and let's get another discussion about it.
A question about bowler history for deceased bowlers on bowl.com and WinLabs, and whether or not they're appearing properly or not. I don't believe there's any issue with the data disappearing, but if you have specific case questions for Lucy, that would be probably best directed to WinLabs support, and not, afraid that's not one I can answer here on stage very effectively. A question about how well USBC is doing in becoming more diverse. I think that's a great question and something that we're certainly take a look at. In fact, every year we participate through USOC at a diversity survey. All of the governing bodies under USOC participate, taking a look at the diversity of our membership. I would say, looking at the results, we haven't seen necessarily significant shifts over the last few years. Just off the top of my head, I'll have to apologize, I don't have it in front of me. But it is certainly something that we're acutely aware of, I think, at all levels, on making sure that we have programs in place to ensure and try and facilitate as much inclusiveness as we possibly can.
Hey, Mike Spricko, back to the stage, please. Go ahead, Jason. Sorry.
Sure. There were, a group of questions that centered around the reclassification of leagues, and I know that was one of the moments that got certainly the most voices from the audience during Chad's presentation. So, Chad, do you maybe want to just talk a little bit more about, I know you've had a chance to read some of the cards that came in, to share some perspective on league reclassification, and hopefully that will address the majority of the note card questions that came in.
No, thank you. Sorry. Just kidding. Obviously, that's a project that's ongoing. The data mining has been enormous, and the guys between Equipment Specs and Association Services have just done a wonderful job of really trying to find inside the data. Every member that's been a member of this organization has a footprint within our system. Every league has a footprint within our system. Every center has a footprint within our system. And so there's all of this data there, and we've started combing it, to try and find trends about how to measure this league against this one, this house against this one. And this was really our first attempt, a small one, as you saw in the presentation, to try and figure out if there's a way to do it better than the way we're doing it in the future. It's something that we're working on. I wouldn't call it a test, but at the same time, until you go to market with it, and you have a larger data set of people that are helping you talk about it, i.e. an appeals process, if you will, that's when it kind of all becomes real. When we sent those initial letters out and immediately got all of this response, then we started sending data back out. Those are all very fruitful things that happen in the process. There's no doubt that it's imperfect, and we'll continue to work on it, but we've identified centers. More importantly, we've identified things that can be used within the data, within those centers, leagues versus leagues, that will help us improve down the road. Again, it's part of a larger project, if you will, but the first step, I would tell you, we come out on the other side very successful in the fact that we've collected a whole bunch of data. The very interesting part was that group of 138 leagues, I apologize, the number's not in front of me, but that group of 138 or whatever the number was that said, yeah, absolutely, we were supposed to be reclassed that way to begin with. I mean, that right there was a tough one for us, because it was like, okay, well, what happened there? And we've got to research now why they weren't classed correctly to begin with. So again, it's an ongoing process, but we did get the data set down really small so it didn't have a larger impact, so we could collect the data and see if we could improve it year over year.
We have a question, in fact, as long as, well, I'll let you talk with Mike, go right ahead, but a question for Mike, I'll move that one on down a little bit, but a question about how do league bowlers find out specific local association officers and specific responsibilities about the associations and how to apply. Great question. We look to provide certainly a lot of resources on bowl.com in terms of find an association is one of the find applications to be able to have a bowler locate who their local association is, and certainly the resources in the Association Resource Center speak to all kinds of details related to support material for association governance structures, best practices, and of course policy manuals. So oftentimes it might not necessarily have a way within bowl.com at the national level to search for all the specific board members, but hopefully it does give a way for that member to be able to find a resource to connect with the association, whether that be through the association website, phone number, et cetera, in case they're looking for those specifics. Question about why no rules seminar this year. Hopefully, Mr. Larson, if I'm not answering this question correctly, you can, or Mr. Stewart, you can let me know. But I think just a diversification of the types of educational opportunities and seminars that we're offering. I mean, the rules seminar has certainly been a long-standing one, but we've looked to really increase the I guess, different types of ideas, different types of speakers that are here, give you some resources, some learning opportunities that are beyond just necessarily education on our rules. And so we thought that would be a good change this year, and hope that you enjoyed it.
Yeah, the rules seminar kind of turned into a party every year. I mean, it really did the last few years.
Because what's more fun than rules?
Exactly right. But we just felt like when we were really looking at the education that we could provide, that was a slot that could be better used this year. But it doesn't mean that the rules seminar in certain years. And I would also communicate if there are things that need to be better understood. We're doing some of that through social media now. But if there's things or a litany of things, send them over. Let's take a look at them. And if it's something that we should be doing, it'll certainly return. We're certainly a rules organization.
I have a question about requesting or wanting to know about a shuttle potentially from the convention to the championship site. So in this case, a shuttle to the women's championships while things were here. Certainly we'll welcome the feedback on that from the surveys. I think that in the previous data that we've had in looking at the number of delegates that we're going over, the cost of having a shuttle was extremely high relative to what if we were to make that to something that the individuals would have to share any cost in, even it would be much more expensive than just having an Uber or a taxi. And so just the practicality of it, it didn't make a lot of sense when we looked at it, in all honesty, even though we certainly appreciate that there are some of you that would have liked that. I think it was about a $10 Uber from here to go over to the stadium.
Yeah, I got asked the question, I think it was yesterday morning, why isn't there a discount in the cafe or the coffee shop? I don't know if the gentleman's in the room. But the shuttle's kind of the same thing. What we've tried to do is work to keep the room nights down. And so when we start to add those things, the room nights are going to creep up. And so it's really a give or take about what the expense would be. I think it would be great to have a shuttle that rattled back and forth, and when at the Orleans next year, it could be the same thing to South Point. But all it's really going to do is move higher costs into the room night because they're certainly going to take the cost of that and apply it. And so it's a balance of the two. But I appreciate it's an easy thing to agree that, yeah, it would be great if we did that, but a little tougher to implement.
A question about with the new agreement between PBA and Fox Television, if there has any opportunities for USBC and PBA to have additional partnerships, alignments.
Yeah, I'm really excited about that deal. Really proud of the PBA and how they went about it. ESPN and that relationship is so, traditional is the word I would use. We've been on ESPN for a long time, and so to cut ties or move to another network had to be just gut-wrenching for the folks. But Fox is investing in bowling. I mean, they really are in a big way, and that's exciting to me. The amount of money that's being moved, to the PBA, a larger piece of it is that Fox is going to be selling, And so we certainly have opportunities within that to, buy ads, just like we have in years past, and do some of those other things. You'll see, Tom and I have been having conversations about doing something a little more unique on the side, and we're working on it. We've certainly cleared up a few bucks because of the way that contract with the Masters is now constructed versus the way it was before, because now, Fox is selling for them. So if we want to buy the ad time, we would buy it from Fox instead of from the PBA. But it's funny, I was on stage here, and I just got an email from Tom about a conversation we had a week and a half ago about a potential sponsorship with them, for this fall and next fall. So there's just so many ways that we can work together, and I look forward to finding those to just make bowling successful at that level. And I know that's always a tough conversation to have, with this delegation, because it's not a choice of what to support one over the other. It's supporting all. Bowling is good. Say it with me. All bowling is good. And so when you think about that, we should be working and helping the PBA just like we do with PWBA. And you guys have heard me say it. I'm just going to say it as long as I stand up here. That 7-year-old girl and that 7-year-old boy competing in sports that aren't any different. I mean, the aspiration or value of that is important. And so I'm really looking forward to see how the Fox PBA deal evolves over time. And I'm rooting for it in a big way.
Question, would it be possible to leave the USBC board recommendation for approval or rejection off of the proposals? I would think that we should vote without knowing how they feel. So I suppose that yes, that would be at the board's discretion if they were to choose to do that, but hopefully many of you also believe that there is value in having an analysis done by your board of directors, who certainly spends an awful lot of time in the strategic direction of the organization.
I think it's fair to say you just hit the suggestion box as opposed to a question.
Speaking of suggestion box, will the women's championships go to a tournament average in the future?
Good question. We almost went there this year. We're going to follow the Open Championships this year in the model that they're using, and see, what comes out of that. Doing it for both tournaments at the same time. Mike and I learned my rules discipline from Gary Brown, but Mike and I and the tournaments group had a lot of dialogue about that. But to do it globally, doing it for the first time, I don't know that made sense. But if it does, bear fruit with the Open Championships, it's certainly something that will come under high consideration for the Women's Championships, as all the other rules will as well. I know I said it the other day, we're really excited about the growth of the Women's Championships and the opportunities moving forward. We've worked very, very hard to get those dates in place to move it around the country, as everyone has communicated that they want. And so we're really looking at that with a keen eye and perspective. And so it will certainly be on the next survey that goes out.
A good question here, I think really related to the equipment specifications, just kind of direction, and that's why doesn't USBC look for tighter controls on oil patterns? Why not look for additional governance in that space?
Oil patterns. Let's see, we got, how many people do we have in here? So we can do a quick survey. How many of you want lower scores than you're getting right now? Please raise your hands. Okay, so. No, keep them up. Raise them high. Raise them high. Bill O'Neill. It's a pretty small group. There's no doubt about that. If there was a majority, say, that wanted that, I think sport bowling and these challenge leagues would be more the rule of the day than standard leagues. But it's not to say that we're not researching it. If you looked at kind of how we've gone about this, we're still gonna look in all the areas, but we found a way to implement some specs, this year in collaboration with the manufacturers and the marketplace that we don't think will have an impact on scoring. But it doesn't mean that all the other things are off the table. And so we'll continue to look at it. If that group was flipped, so how many of you want to keep your averages that you have today? Raise your hands. And so if those numbers were flipped, we probably would take a serious look at it. And again, it's, you know, your consumers in the end are the ones that decide. And what you might say to a center desk employee on a Wednesday night or a Tuesday afternoon is important. And so to put our proprietor friends and partners in a situation that really isn't conducive to the marketplace just doesn't make sense at this point. But we'll continue to research it and look at it. We really feel like those that want it, those challenge and sport leagues, and the structure of it is available to you now. And so we're going to follow along. We had 42 or 44,000 certified leagues last year. The data's right there. As soon as the majority of those leagues become challenge in sport, we'll know we're onto something. I hope that makes sense.
A good follow-up question on lane conditions, and just remarking that following some of the research that's been done on oil absorption in balls, will there be any additional studying done on the lane conditioner itself, lane oil, and how, whether or not any adjustments or improvements there could be made?
Yeah, the approval process dictates that. You know, all the oils come in for approval. And so that's a kind of a continuous piece with the manufacturers. You know, we just did a whole study on blue oil, you know, because the PBA uses the blue oil, which was really fascinating and interesting. I think everybody likes it as a marketing tactic. I know I do. But the way that is applied on the lane and what it would look like in the bowling center at this point in time, the technology doesn't exist to support it. But we'll continue to look at it, all the areas. And when I say all the areas, I really do mean all of the areas on a regular basis. That's the responsibility of any national governing body.
I don't know, is Mr. Spridko close by? There's a question that I think I can answer, but that would be even, why don't you come on up, Mike, or hit a microphone if you, whatever's convenient, you're welcome to come on up. Just the question is just asking for some really details on when the local association is notified during different grievance processes. And Mike, I don't know if it might be useful for you to just kind of walk everybody through, you know, when you get in a standard grievance, what is the Rules Department's process for notifying both the people that have had a grievance against them, for those keeping the person that has the concern in the loop, and keeping the association involved as well?
Okay, whenever we get a grievance, we try to keep everybody involved, especially the local association. You know, especially when there's a member of yours who is up for disciplinary action, you know, we want you to know that, hey, so-and-so may be facing this. Once they're notified, you know, and then a suspension letter goes out, you're definitely notified on that. If we ever miss that, it's definitely not our process. So our standard process is definitely keep the association involved anytime there's something in your area, especially when it's a grievance. You know, obviously if we get emails saying, hey, is this a follow or something like that, you know, it's just a response back. But anything that's going to escalate, we do try to keep the associations involved.
Great, thank you, Mike. And certainly if anybody has any specific additional questions as it relates to rules process, Mike will be available during the microphone, open microphone portion as well. Chad, I think you have a card that you wanted to read?
Yeah, you got a three-part question. Number one, with whom specifically is the authority to amend the rules of the Open Championships? The answer to that is that the championships are in the area of staff. Number two, what rule, bylaw, or policy provides for that authority? That's Article 4 of the Board Duties, Section E of Authority and Duties, Item 11 of the USBC National Bylaws. Where can we members see said rules on bylaws is the third question, which is the association resource page at bowl.com, National Bylaws.
Excellent, excellent. Well, as we start to wind down some of our cards, there's one here that I just don't want to do justice to reading, because instead I want to invite our friend from Hawaii up to the microphone, if you don't mind, just because it's a question that just isn't proper for me to read. I want to just say congratulations. This is 45 years
Yes.
Congratulations.
Yes.
Would you like to introduce yourself to the delegation, a man who needs no introduction?
Sure. My name is Art Machado. I was once on the ABC board, served back in 2000. My concern, and I've been doing it for the last 20, 30 years, we like to invite the membership to come to Hawaii. You know?
And you know what? Frankie is applauding. I'm really excited to be able to share. I've been looking forward to this because we sent some staff to Hawaii.
Right, you did.
To do workshops with you. How was that?
It was outstanding, but the last time we ever had anybody was 2004. I don't want to wait another 14 to 20 years.
I can guarantee you that our regional managers would love to make it an annual trip.
You know, when I brought it up in 2000, when I was on the ABC board, at that time the question was, do you guys have the facilities? At that time we had just one convention facility. Now we have three big ones, and they're right in Waikiki, and I'm quite sure that those who have been to Hawaii on their own would really enjoy not only the island of Oahu, we also got 7 more different islands. I appreciate
I'm not going to argue with a word you're saying. It's a beautiful place to visit.
You know, I always hear, oh, it's the cost. You know, things can be worked out. Like I say, I've been over 45 conventions. Cost shouldn't be a factor. If you know where you're going ahead of time, you can come up with a budget. If you say 3 years from now, 4 years from now, we're going to Hawaii, people would be putting aside that money that would take them to Hawaii. I just want to say one more thing.
Sure.
When you come to Reno or you come to Las Vegas, you got to bring extra bucks because you're going to gamble. You come to Hawaii, there's no gambling. You don't have to worry about losing 1,000 or a couple thousand. You come to enjoy the scenery and the people of Hawaii. Thank you.
Thank you. I love that, man, every year because it's so much fun to think about. And because we made the decision to put the convention back inside the tournament, we might also have to take the women's championships to Hawaii. And the great part about this conversation, I always end up being the bad guy when I start looking at it. Anyway, thank you, sir. Appreciate the dialogue.
With that, we will open up the microphones for any additional questions. I know we didn't necessarily read every question specifically, but if there's anything that we missed, please, we'd love to hear from you.
Yes, and we'd have a great time in Hawaii.
A second on Hawaii.
Maybe next year when we do the voting test, it should be about who would like to have the convention in Hawaii.
Yeah, I'm all in going to Hawaii, so I'll be there. I would go to that one. Question is about the new standards on the balls. Question was posed to me, when does the extra 3 ounces come into play? If they plug the holes now, is that going to make the ball out of not be legal?
It would, yeah. Whoa, I just spent, apologies. Somebody help me. It's January 1. 2020. Okay, I got it. Wow. January 1 of 2020, the 3 ounces.
No.
August.
No, hold on.
Balance holes have to be plugged by August 1. The static weight change takes place in January.
Yeah, I was starting with the static weights. The 3 ounces expands in January 1 of 2020, and then the weight holes in August 1 of 2020.
Okay. Next question, or last question, is on the reclassification. I get the whole thing. The data is all great and everything, but if you've got a big house and you've got a league on this side of the house, a league on the other side of the house, same oil pattern, how can one be a challenge shot and the other one not?
Yeah,
I mean,
good question.
At some point, the lanes have to be tested, don't they?
Yeah, the answer to that question at this point in time, I think, is no. But the way you ask the question is very reasonable. You know, what we saw in the data, it certainly could have been expanded. We could have taken one league and then looked at it at the other end of the house, a Tuesday night versus a Wednesday. But at this point in time, we were looking to collect data and see, you know, what exactly we were getting at. We didn't want to get a whole lot of folks caught up in the net, you know, that weren't supposed to be there. But I would also just share with you that there were so many things we learned from this process. Travel leagues, they bowl 6 games instead of 3. And those last 3 game averages were so much lower than the first 3. They bowl in 9 centers. 6 of the centers, the averages would fit into the standard category, but they go to 3 centers that are a little bit tougher, and you take the 9, and so they fall into a challenge. If it was only in those 3 centers, it would have fallen to a sport. And so we're going to keep working through it. I completely agree with what you said. At the same time, the staff will now go back, take a look at it at a larger level. We may come back and include that as part of it, but we're looking for a way to do it with the data. And we may or may not get there. We also, you know, have made the commitment for next year. If we don't get it mined in the fall, you know, we'll really take a look at whether it's prudent to do it or not because of the tournaments in the spring. The appeals process took quite a while. So I love the question. I appreciate it, and we're going to continue to look at it. But at this point, I'm not quite sure. We get through the appeals process, start digging into the data, and then try to figure out the way forward.
I'm just going to bounce back and forth. Go ahead.
Perfect. So that great summary document or the summary video that you did on the product or on the respecs of the balls, is that available somewhere that I can just give to my members that are already Facebooking bad things?
Yeah, all the information is on bowl.com.
Okay.
On the equipment specs page, including all the research docs, all the videos from the technology study, both from before and what we just recently added. Staff did a great job of putting this together in a short period of time. We just have I say it all the time, and I know, you know, some self-interest in doing it, but we just have a wonderful staff that really came together on this project, and it's all there and cataloged for you.
Perfect, thank you.
Sir.
Hello, my question relates to league average classifications as well. No problem with the intent behind it, but my issue was timing, because the season starts August 1st, which means teams have formed, some association tournaments have already happened. Your decision happens January 1st, which means teams that fit December 31st now don't fit January 1st. So that created a lot of confusion in my association because we had 6 leagues, and having to be able to answer that question was difficult. The other part of it is communication. I found out the same time my league members did, and I didn't have the answers. So it makes us locally look like we don't know what we're doing, or look like we don't know what's going on. So if we had got a heads up, you know, a month or 2 ahead of time saying, hey, in January we're going to reclass these averages, this is how you answer the questions, I think we would have been better equipped to handle that situation.
Yeah, I appreciate it. We don't disagree on the first part for sure. The fall's a much better time for that than the spring was, especially with how long it took. The second part of that is a little bit more difficult, mostly just because it's tough to give information to one and not give it to the other, because for the most part, when you give it to one, you're giving it to the other. And so, you know, we do have a large desire from the associations that want that information in advance. But it's tough because of the confidential nature of it. At that point in time, we give it to the association. They start having conversations with the league or the center, so we might as well give it to the league and center, because then that phone starts ringing from there. And so the second part of that's a little tough, but we'll continue to take a look at it. But I appreciate the question.
My question is about ensuring that youth tournament directors are members.
we can only ensure that to events that are certified. Would that be correct?
Are there events that aren't certified?
I think we can all agree to that.
I didn't think we adjudicated that. We live
So
in
organizations, like as was referenced earlier, that are as businesses, that tournament directors are not USBC members, they would not fall into this.
No, I mean, again, we oversee certified leagues and tournaments and membership. And so, you know, folks that want to service the uncertified space, you take on those risks that come with it. I mean, it doesn't mean that we wouldn't like to or want to, but we would have no legal standing to do so.
Thank you.
Again, Art Machado. This is probably the best convention I ever attended.
Yo!
Keep up the good work.
Jackpot, baby.
The motivation speakers are outstanding, and this is the way to go. For those who have been at the first one, I hope you really enjoyed the motivation speaker. It brings a lot to a convention. Thank you.
Wow, 45 years, too.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I appreciate that, Art. I want to tell a quick story, if you don't mind. And I think it's important because, again, it's really Mike Larson and his team. It really, 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 truly is. When I became the interim executive director, that day was 83 days from convention. 83 days from convention. And this was an area of intent focus for us. You are so important for our industry. And we had, I don't know why, but we had kind of lost our way in this convention, I think, through the move and the mergers and all of those things. And there was this angst, this we and them and I and those guys. And we just really started not too long after that to make a commitment and how important this convention is globally, but again, from a training and education standpoint. And again, I take Jason and I talk about it all the time. That's Mike Larson and Richard Stewart and the association regional managers, and everybody's involved in the conversations that they have with you and what's needed, and I appreciate it. It means a lot because these guys are working hard on it.
I brought this up yesterday when the PBA bowlers were kind enough to give us a few minutes, so I apologize for anybody that hears me repeating this. One of the areas where I see the most bowlers that we're not retaining, not picking up, not gaining in our certified leagues is after college and before, say, 40 or 50, so maybe what you now would consider like your millennial generation. And I think that's where we have some of the biggest losses in our leagues, but I also noticed that the FECs seem to be getting some of them back in a more casual setting and building upon the mantra that all bowling is good, which it is. Do you see that as more of a grassroots on the local proprietor league development level entirely in terms of getting them back involved, or do you see any initiatives on the USBC national level to maybe assist in that regard? Thanks, guys.
Great question. Say it. He said it. All bowling is good. That's such a tough activation. And I would take a little bit of a different turn because it's easy to look at that spot in the athlete development ladder or even the membership development ladder and say, boy, we lose them there. And we do. How many moms in the room? At what age does your children come off your payroll? And again, I'm being funny, but it's true, and we know it's true. You know, when you get into college and you come out of college and then you land or even, come out of high school and you don't go to college and you land in the workforce or you leave home, that's the area that's problematic for us. And but I do think, and this is a very unpopular opinion, but I do think if we will get focused on 8 to 12-year-olds locally, if we will start to build that affinity earlier, we will have a better chance to keep them when they become adults. And again, that is a symptom, I believe, of a larger problem, which we're doing great in the high school space. We're doing great in the collegiate space, but those spaces are a lot smaller than in terms of the larger number of kids. And so I really believe if we'll get focused locally is the answer to your question. In those 8 to 12-year-olds, they'll start sooner, they'll create a deeper affinity for it, and they'll stay longer. Great question. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I want to go back to youth processing. It is getting to be ridiculous as to what we're seeing in the office. I constantly get calls from my office and from my association people that they're always on the phone to Lucy and Christy trying to get the kids situated. They've got one ID for certification. They've got one ID for being on the league. They got another ID for the SMART program. Last year I asked about this, and Jason gave me the answer, well, we're not even considering it as far as merging them with the adults. They are members. They need to be treated the same. Segregating them off into a system for tests over and over again and changing it year after year from what we had over to the independent contractor, I can't think of the name right now, and then back to the youth system. The interface doesn't work. It's time to put them in with us and treat them as equals and not as, oh, there's only 500,000, we can play with them. It's time to move this way and not, we'll look at it. Thank you.
Let me hit on it. I'll hit on it. I wish we had 500,000 to start with. So I love you for that part in a big way. The youth processing system, which is it's not a third party, it's internal. And then the separation to Win Labs. It has come up in a lot of merger discussions because the three becoming one, why would youth still stay off? And we do, longer term, we have to look at the total structure of it and what that should look like. And I would tell you just to hang in there with us. It isn't going to happen in the next 12 months. But we are, Jason and Robert Stokes and Christy Bickley and all the folks, we're having lots of conversation what the future of processing is. And the goal would certainly be to have everybody in one. There's no doubt about that. And so I appreciate the passion in which you went about that question. But single sign-on, as an example, is a piece of business that we also need to be thinking about and working about. And all I would leave you with at this point is tournament registration, right? The Open and Women's Championships are on it. The Youth Championships are on it this year. And now that that's built, those registration systems can now be customized to other areas. And so look for that in the future. We certainly don't have anything to announce today. It takes time and energy. But we've certainly been behind the curve, and Frankie talked about it earlier. We've got to get ahead of it. So I appreciate the passion, but hang in there with us.
My question relates to communication. I was notified 2 days before the deadline for the young delegates. And by the time I got it out to my athlete delegates, they then questioned, well, what's this about? What do we do? And the process was already over. I think you could at least give us a month before. They need to figure out travel arrangements, vacation time, etc.
Yeah, I appreciate the suggestion. I'm not exactly sure when it went out. I know
I got it, Chad, I got it the day before it expired.
Oh, I don't.
And so that just doesn't, that's not realistic.
No, I think there's, again, I appreciate the suggestion. We'll go back and look at it. But I think it, the way it goes out in a lot of different ways, it's an easy thing to say because it goes into the association e-news and it goes out through email and it goes out through all of these places. But yeah, the intent is to get it out, way in advance so everybody can see it. I don't know if Larson's around, but that delegate grant goes live in the fall. Somebody help me, George, anybody? Yeah, so it's there.
Okay, so my question involves house balls and the new balance ball thing. And I'm thinking of, what I'm asking is my younger bowlers and my new bowlers, that a lot of them, especially my little kids, throw with two hands, but normally they don't have their own ball and they're pre-drilled out. Will they still be able to use those balls after 2020?
That's a great question. I'm going to say the answer is yes, because they always have been. I don't know that we'll see a rash of weight holes added to house balls.
Oh yeah, because I know they're not that, but I'm thinking of those.
Yeah,
Because you said all of them have to use.
Yeah, I'm sure somebody would, but technically the answer would be no if they were a two-hander or using two fingers, because they'd have to use the thumb. And so the rule would still apply, but it may be something we need to take a look at if there's a rash of activity there.
Okay.
Back to the junior gold. As someone who has never run a non-sanctioned, non-certified event, I guess my question is, are the junior gold qualifiers are they non-sanctioned or are they certified? If somebody is running a junior gold feeder organization, are those tournaments being run as non-certified or as certified?
No,
Or
they're certified events, requirement of the program.
they are certified?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
We'd like to know, on a state level, can USBC or would they come in and overrule the appointment of a Pepsi State Finals tournament director that has been appointed by the state association president?
Yeah, I think I saw that one somewhere else. If there's a problem at the state or local, someone certainly needs to file a grievance with the rules department. You're asking, would we? I don't know what situation would warrant that. But if you're thinking about it, put it in an email, detail as much as you can the information that you think is problematic with this state Pepsi director, and ship it to Mike and let his team take it from there.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
Jason, one of the questions that you read was regard to diversity and the diversity of our membership. How would we attain that information? There's nothing that's on a certification application with regard to race or anything, ethnicities that would be regarded diversity other than age diversity or male-female. So in the leadership succession workshop, which was excellent, they showed us how we could do a graph for our board, which we're all sitting in the room. But I don't know how I get the diversity of 39,000 members.
Sure. Great question, and it's challenging. And what Tremont, through his staff and leadership, he sends out a survey every year to the membership that asks a series of questions, of which there are diversity questions as a part of that, and then that's what we provide back to USOC for the membership piece. Of course, providing the information on Team USA and staff and board is a little bit more straightforward because we have that information right in front of us. But the short answer is it's done via email survey for the memberships.
Thank you.
Sure.
So earlier, one of our local bowlers came because we're bowling in the Women's Nationals this week. So she was here earlier, and she had questioned, have you ever thought of partnering with Special Olympics?
Good question. Yeah, yes is the answer. We've spent a lot of time with Special Olympics. We spent a lot of time with Big Brothers and Big Sisters. We spent a lot of time with a lot of organizations like that. There was a test a few years ago where we were working hand in hand. There were a couple states that we tested a program, I think Ohio and Arizona by memory. When we came out of the test, there was a significant amount of money that was asked for to continue it. And so the decision was made not to. We still have a Special Olympics membership that's available through the membership process, but we don't have a direct one-on-one relationship with Special Olympics at this point, mostly because of the cost that they were requiring.
And just to kind of echo the woman who was up there a minute ago, in regards to the youth bowling,
thank you.
I have tons of little kids whose hands won't fit into that ball. So if in a year and a half from now, 2 years from now, I have to go to them and say, I'm sorry, you have to be 9 years old to bowl in my youth program because your hands don't fit, or you can't throw it with two hands or roll the ball down, I mean, it'll create decline in our leagues, because if they're all considered weight holes because their fingers don't fit in them to even use it for the delivery, all their shots are illegal and I can't do anything with them anymore.
Yeah, we'll take another look at it. I mean, there's lots of ways to resolve that, many ways to resolve that without, changing the rules. But it might be something that we need to look at I mean, if you think about it, you know, lots of bowling centers have lightweight house balls behind the desk.
For sure, and they do use 6-pound balls. I'm not, saying around that. But
All I was trying to get at was they don't have to have finger holes in them. You know, Del Ballard's a wonderful friend of mine. His daughter Alyssa, you know, learned how to bowl with 2 hands. There were no holes in the balls.
So in turn, it's the more recommendation to have all the parents purchase all the equipment for my 5-year-old daughter to go bowl.
I'm sorry?
So it's the responsibility falls back on the parents then to purchase a 6-pound ball with no holes instead of being welcoming to the...
Yeah, the rule starts at 10.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry. But again, I do want to be clear about that. There just are a lot of ways to service that issue.
Tom Dale from Nation's Capital for my 32nd consecutive convention. So
thanks, Tom.
Glad to be here. Don't know how many more I'm going to make, but some of my bowlers back home are questioning how it came about, the changes that have been made for the Open Championships, the different makeup of the teams, the average rules and everything. They're curious as to what brought on all the changes, and was that something that just a unilateral decision? Was there surveys? Was there, you know, what's the authority, et cetera, for that type of change for the championships?
Yeah, the authority lands with the staff, but obviously we work in conjunction with the board and task forces. I think the very direct answer to your question is we made some significant, I would call sweeping changes 2 years ago. And one, we couldn't get all the way to where we wanted to get to 2 years ago, but then through feedback, dialogue, a lot of it happens at the window at the championships. When you get up to the window and what people say, our staff takes in a lot of information there. And so the decision was made to move forward in, you know, quote unquote, breaking up some of those teams, but really the rules related to collegiate and Team USA and those types of things, you know, is an attempt to, obviously it separates, you know, between 75 and 100 teams, maybe a few more to protect, you know, the rest of the teams in that division from a competitive standpoint. The average, the tournament average in and of itself has been, you know, pretty well accepted uniformly. When we rolled out the changes and put the average, divisions in 2 years ago, it was tough to explain the conversions in a way that made sense to everybody. And so the use of the tournament average was always the end goal. We just didn't have we didn't have a way to take league averages and roll them down. We could only roll sport averages up at that point. And by adding the challenge chart, now we reversed them and they're there. We feel very confident the tournament average will be a welcome addition to the tournament.
That's one thing I found, that having the tournament average shown out there has convinced me that this is my last year at the tournaments. 35 years is enough at the Open, so. But
yeah, and I'm sad to hear that, Tom, but I don't, it makes a lot of sense. One of the downsides in doing the tournament averages is that everyone, you know, can now see what those divisions look like and the scores. I think it's an important thing from a, you know, everybody throws around the word transparency. From a marketing perspective, we certainly could have left it, you know, in a way that was hidden. But I also do think that that's one of the really good things about the championships. When we survey, you know, making them difficult or somewhat difficult, survey is really high in comparison to making it a league shot or situation. And so, you know, maintaining the integrity of that, I think is important, but I hope you'll change your mind and take another look.
Thank you.
I'm just curious as to why the qualifying rounds for the Masters tournament were available on Extra Frame, but not available on bowl.com or bowl.tv.
Yeah, that's part of the agreement with the PBA that was signed a few years ago in partnership and conjunction. Extra Frame covers professional bowling for us. And so that's the answer to that question.
Wasn't that a USBC event, though, as opposed to a PBA event?
It is a USBC event, but the PBA supports it financially with the PBA truck. Our TV is part of, our championship, the Masters are a part of their TV schedule on ESPN. And so they own the rights to that as part of the contract.
Hi, I wanted to say it was a great convention, and I love the new workshops y'all added about orientation of your board members and your association managers. I really enjoyed that, and it's been needed for a long time. Okay, on to my question. When we were going through the bylaws proposal number B2, it got me curious about if USBC has ever done research as to, is it the same associations every year that are not sending delegates, and if they're not, why they're not sending them? Is it a financial issue? Is it a lack of understanding? Because if it's lack of finances, then maybe some kind of program like your Young Delegate program would help.
Yeah, I think this is something that could be considered. I do think it's financial. If you look at the attendance this year, and don't take me literally, but I'm using the numbers from this morning before we got the credentials account. We had one less person at this convention this year than we did last year, but we had roughly 60 more voting delegates. And we're going to go back and comb it and look against the 2 years, but in my mind, that's a product of the reconstruction of the 1 per 500 versus 1 per 1,000 members. That would just be my guess. It's probably a similar group of people that came, but more were eligible to vote because of the switch there. But I can't say that for sure, so we'll certainly check it out.
Yeah.
In the end, how would you decide at that point which associations got that money and which ones didn't?
Have a lottery. Sit out there and have a lottery, if they can't afford it. I know we're eligible for 2 every year, and some years we're small enough that we can only afford to send 1. And so, I just wondered if it was that kind of situation or if it was associations that can't afford to send any, and maybe some kind of outreach program to them would be helpful.
I appreciate the suggestion. We do look at it every year. This was the first year with the new structure, 1 per 500, and so we'll continue to look at it. I appreciate it.
Okay.
I was actually going to piggyback after her information. I've been an association manager for 10 years, and this is the first opportunity that I've had to be able to come to a convention, and it's on my dime, and it's because of the women's championship. And my concern is all the information that I've learned, and I would like to thank you for Richard and his presentation and information, and Mike. But the information that I found out, there's stuff that I should have been doing or sending in, and I didn't get a lot of that information. I had to train myself from day one. So there is a lack of getting that information out. Your tournament people are really good about saying, okay, this is what's due. Thank you for signing up for your city tournament. This is due at this time. I just found out you're supposed to give bylaws every 5 years, your updated bylaws. But if people don't reach out to you to say, this is what's due, we need to have this information, we don't know if we're not able to come to convention.
Yeah, good point. I appreciate that perspective because I think it's important. We've made some real strides in the last few years. The new Association Resource Center is an example of that too. To really raise our game, if you will, in the area of training and education. And it's important. And everybody will remember not that long ago when we had all the troubles with the 990s, that was certainly a communication issue as well. And so there's a real commitment here from the board down to staff to do more in that space. The Association Leadership Academy.
And thank you for that.
Yeah. I penned a document a couple years ago, not really knowing how it was going to go when we took it to the board level, and then Jason helped me with it, Mike Larson, about expanding the regional managers so that they were available, but really turning them into teachers, training and education as opposed to relationships. And I think some of what you're talking about is the availability of those fine folks to work with you too. But I would also say on top of all of that we're doing in the area of training and education, this convention is important to the long-term success of the organization. I think we're seeing so many byproducts of it in the field because we've invested in it the last few years. And so we will continue to look at ways to get more people here. I read an article that was written recently about athlete delegates. We're for every athlete that's qualified to be here. We communicate with them regularly on the fact that they are eligible to be here. The 1 in 1,000 went to 1 in 500 this year for the first time. And so we're going to keep trying to find new ways to do that. But in the end, it is cost prohibitive. But I do want to say that I do appreciate the fact that the reason why you are here is because the championships are together, because again, that was another piece of research that we did that made it very obvious that we should be doing that. And I'm excited to see it, pay off, if you will, for you and others. When I had everybody raise their hands on Tuesday that were here for the Women's Championship, it made me feel really good because that's just a tough thing sometimes. People would like the convention to be closer to them, but when an overwhelming majority of the women that come or the men bowl those championships, it's an easy decision to make because you can do it on one ticket.
Correct. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Two quick things. One, looking at bowl.com, we found all the paperwork and stuff from the new bowling ball specs. Can you add the video for us to share too? That would help eliminate the chatter. It wasn't up there.
Yeah, it's there.
It's hard to find.
On the equipment specifications page.
Is that where it's put at?
Click on the research study. It's also on YouTube as well.
The second one is the board of directors they're voting on. To me, it seems like we should have a choice on who the board of directors would be in coming in and have an election. If the current board is going to narrow the field down to the number of open seats, it eliminates the choice for us. And it makes the Meet the Delegates seminar kind of pointless. So why do we narrow it down to just the number of open seats and take the choice away from us, the voting members?
Yeah, I don't think that's we get that question, often, and I think it's we appreciate the suggestion. It's tough in that room, when you get down to it, because there's certainly an assumption too that a certain amount of folks will run from the floor. This year, that didn't happen, and so there were only 3. But it's something that they consider as part of the process every year. I can attest to that. So I appreciate the thought.
You guys put a date, though, 30 days before to run from the floor, and we normally don't find out how the candidates are. It's a short-term window for us to know that. And that makes it really hard to run from the floor if we've got to put in 30 days prior, too.
Yeah, and I see what you're saying there. I think that one's a little bit rough because kind of the assumption there is that if you are thinking about a board spot, you probably went through the nominating process. You filed an application. And so everyone would know at that point whether they were being moved forward or not. And so usually the folks that come from the floor do come from within that process. Doesn't mean that somebody else couldn't, and it's great, but until you finish the process, it would be tough to do it any differently. We also moved the date back a month. Last year, this is the second year, I believe, that we've done that. Is it the third year? Maybe the third year that we've done that. Because originally the date for applications was September 1st, which, a lot of leagues hadn't even been on the floor yet. So we felt like we made a large improvement to move it back to October, and we've been getting more applicants. But I appreciate the perspective, and I think you just hit the suggestion box, so thanks for it.
Thank you.
So with you having the national tournaments with conventions, is there a way to hold like weekend reservations for those delegates that are coming to convention so that they have an opportunity to bowl once they're here?
That's a great question. Jason, I don't want to be the bad guy. You want to take this one? I'm just kidding.
I think I've taken a few of those
already. Yeah. It's tough because when we open registration, we open it for everybody. And registration opens a year in advance. And so that's a tough thing to do. Usually a lot of folks, know whether they're going to be delegates not until the fall. So it's something that we should continue to look at, I agree. But at this point in time, we haven't done that, just in fairness to all the membership.
Okay.
Okay, a point of clarification maybe from the discussion earlier about the youth and the bowling balls.
My understanding when we went through the certification process for the bowling balls, that was 10 pounds and heavier. Was that not correct? And not worrying about the 6-pounders and anything under 10 that the house is going to have. Is that not true?
It is true. I'm not quite sure of the question, but it's
Well,
10 pounds and over.
The point of the discussion point earlier was the youth that they have at the house has got a 6-pound ball, or the house ball is going to be, you know, at that point in time. But throughout the discussion, each of the areas that you have, the certifications for 10-pound bowling balls or higher for up to 2020. Is that not true?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay, so there is no issue then with the 6-pounders or anything under that that's going to be at the house.
Agreed. But I think I may have confused that, because when the house ball question came up, I immediately went to try to fix it instead of just thinking about what's in the paperwork. So I appreciate you clarifying.
Okay, it was just trying to ask the question to make sure that that was
my
covered.
fault.
So
I
thank you.
appreciate it. Yeah.
Just one
I just want to wrap it up. I'm a proprietor back on Oahu, one of the islands. Every Tuesday and Wednesday, I acknowledge the schools. They pay 50 cents between the hours of 4 and 5 o'clock. It has increased not only my lineage, but it also has increased my youth program. On the Special Olympics, I have about 300 to 400 use my facilities. Age group from 4 all the way up to 97.
That's great.
I've been blessed, and I think proprietors should do something like that, give back in order to us to improve the youth programs. Thank you.
No, that's great. I think there's more great programs. It's tough to say there's more great programs than others, because there's so many great programs that came in the past. But I do think that the proprietor groups, both nationally and at the state level, are doing a good job of trying to push out new programs to do that, and even some of the businesses that are in the marketplace to do that as well. So, but that's a great idea. Everybody in here should go back and have a conversation with your proprietor about that right there. Dale?
Hello, Chad and Jason. First off, a comment. Thank you for what you do.
Thanks, man. I appreciate that.
Well, you're welcome. It's never easy for change, but obviously our sport needed change, the direction we were going. So I commend you and the board for having the courage to make the hard choices, to make the changes. I would encourage you as well to try to remain as transparent as possible as we go through these tough changes. And my last comment is, I do feel it is important for the delegates to feel they have a choice in board members as well. I would love to see more candidates slated than there are open positions. But thank you for what you do.
Thanks for the perspective. Yeah, appreciate it. Thank you, Dale. Any other questions? Seeing none, do you have anything you want to say before we close?
Just thank you all for the wonderful support that you've shown to our staff and our team here this week. It's really been a tremendous week and a lot of fun.
I closed the town hall last year saying, see you in Reno in a year, and that was a mistake. We will see you soon somewhere around the country. And thank you for what you do. So travel safe on the way home. We're here for you if you need us. Please give us a call, an email, Resource Center. Travel safe.
Go. Oh.